I've seen in the newsreels, I've read about it in the newspapers and heard descriptions on the radio. I'm writing with the tears streaming down my face. It's just that I got that letter of August 20th from you, and it touched me deeply.
Did you write often?
Every chance I got.
There are 19 million war veterans living in the United States today. 19 million men and women who've lived extraordinary lives. 19 million stories worth telling. Stories about big wars and small gestures.
My father-in-law said, I'm not giving you the silver dollar, I'm lending it to you because I want you to bring it back. So I carried that in my pocket throughout the war, and I brought it back. You want me to take it out of the case?
I want to zoom in.
It's a silver dollar from 1891.
Wow.
When my son was drafted in the Vietnam War, I gave him the silver dollar. And I told him he's got to bring it back. And he did.
Memories like this are worth preserving. So in 2000, Congress created the Veterans History Project to gather the stories and documents of veterans and those who supported them. These stories are told through oral histories, home movies, letters, pictures, and diaries. They are told by those who went to war and those who stayed behind. These are the Americans who witnessed history. These are the wars as seen through their eyes.
I was in Vietnam. I know what happened at Tet. We won that battle at Tet. But by the time it got over the airways back in the United States, we were losing.
These are the stories of veterans from World War I, World War II, and the Korean, Vietnam, and Persian Gulf Wars. Each war and each veteran's experience is different.
When my company was going to go, until we got on the plane, I didn't think we were really going. Because, you know, we always practice those exercises. We practice packing up all your gear, getting on the plane, and just departing. And you just come right back. But we actually went.
Each day, we lose 1,500 of those who served, and we lose more of our history as their stories go untold.
Recording those stories is a part of America's history. The entire story will come together when you tell your part of it.
All along the route, people were gathered to watch us go by. We were greeted with hysterical shouts of Vive l'Americain, showered with flowers. In the towns, they were lined in the streets, yelling and screaming and crying. Whenever a vehicle had to stop, we were mobbed by old and young who just wanted to touch our hands.
Join the Library of Congress's American Folklife Center and AARP in the Veterans History Project. Millions of Americans. Millions of stories. Tell your story. Ask others theirs. There's no story or sacrifice too small.
Did I show you this card that the baby made? I said, D-Day stands for Daddy Day. The whole wide world is his. At times like this, I wish I knew just what a daddy is. When he did come home, he came home the day after Valentine's Day, and we baked a big chocolate cake in the shape of a heart. And after that, every February 15th, we had a heart-shaped chocolate cake.
Come forward, tell your story in your own words. It's more important than you may think it is. The American story can be told through 1,000 different voices, 1,000 different pictures, 1,000 different memories.
always seemed regrettable to me that Combat Command B of the 10th Armored Division didn't get the credit it deserved in the Battle of Bastogne. All of the newspaper and radio talk was about the paratroopers. Actually, the 10th Armored Division was in there a day before we were and had some very hard fighting before we ever got into it. And I sincerely believe that we would never have been able to get into Bastogne if it had not been for the defensive fighting of the three elements of the 10th Armored Division who were first in the Bastogne and protected the town from invasion by the Germans.
The 10th Armored Division was activated at Fort Benning, Georgia, on the 15th of July, 1942. From the very beginning, it was known as a hot outfit. Its nickname, Tiger Division. The commanding general of the 10th, Major General Paul W. Newgarden, was a superb leader. Carry out orders, march, maneuver, and shoot were his bywords. No man had more pride in his troops, and no general was more revered by his men.
And he was explaining and telling people about why the 10th Armored Division was different. And one of the things he used to talk about, and you probably all remember this, most people wore the overseas cap, by the way. Most people wore their overseas cap like that. But we didn't wear ours like that. We were kind of cocky. Got it over here on the side. That's the way we wore our hats. She got your hat on. You got yours on, Ross. So we were a real proud outfit. And he had a few other little, I think they were good gimmicks for building up morale and really getting you charged up, you know. Most people, when you salute, the 10th Armored Division didn't salute that way. We threw a salute. So everybody knew that. And we always walked around like this. You always had your chin up. And the thing that maybe wasn't too popular with the troops, but nevertheless, a top button on a shirt, fatigues, no matter what you had on, the top button was buttoned. Those were the things that I think that people remembered, and they were proud to be in the 10th Armored. We ended up with a real good record, so we're still proud to have been in the 10th Armored.
Here's an example of the khaki hat worn by PFC Robert Golden of the 10th Armored Division.
The 10th Armored Division was activated at Fort Benning, Georgia, on the 15th of July, 1942.
They moved out from Fort Benning in Columbus to Fort Gordon in Augusta, Georgia. From there, they moved to Tennessee for maneuvers and training during 1943 and the first part of 1944. In August 1944, they went to New York and awaited orders to be shipped out, and when they did, they were shipped out to Cherbourg, France, arriving the 14th of September 1944. The unit is no longer in existence. It was only in existence from August 1942 through the end of World War II and disbanded in September of 1945. The last reunion of the 10th Armored Division is scheduled for September 2005, 60 years after the unit was disbanded.
Instead of taking us onto Omaha Beach, they took us into the tranquil ramps of the Cherbourg Harbor. And we went out into the countryside, pushed the cows over, and the fields were full of poles set up by the Germans to keep gliders from landing. And then the hard rains of that Norman autumn, we tooled up our tanks and general armor and got ready to roll. And then the breakout by Patton's army came at Avalanche, and the Germans learned he was there, and here he came. And we didn't stop until we got to the Moselle River all the way across France. Paris was a marvel. We came through the left bank, through Boulevard Saint-Germain, And all the French girls and little boys were throwing apples at us, celebrating, screaming with joy. And the apples, when you're coming forward at 20 miles an hour, will pop you on the head. It makes them lump. But the girls would climb the front slope plates of our armored vehicles and climb into the fighting compartments with the guys and kiss them and wave along with the soldiers. It was a great time. But luckily, they got us on out of Paris and to the far side before they let us stop. And we camped out there. Went to the Moselle, forced a crossing behind the 90th Division.
I can remember vividly the first days of combat, the first orders we received. Colonel Roberts called us into a small churchyard in the town of Chalon-sur-Marne. His first words were that the reason he called us into this particular churchyard in this particular town were that this was the place that he had received his first orders to go into combat during World War I, and he wanted to use this particular spot to start us off. We moved up all afternoon past Verdun and in the vicinity of Metz, and then that evening, in a beautiful moonlight night, it happened to be Halloween night, we infiltrated our half-tracks one by one, 3 minutes apart, down a very spooky road through a village and up into a wooded area, dismounted, and then trucked on up and relieved the 90th Division. I'm William R. Desiree. I was a battalion commander, a major in the 10th Armored Division in World War II.
The 10th Armored Division was a very well-trained division. Its first combat was against Metz. Metz was, you might call it a defensive sector as far as the 10th was concerned. We were supposed to aggressively patrol, and we did. We saw that every instrument and every weapon was fired at least once in more or less anger against the enemy. I'm William Lynn Roberts, Brigadier General, U.S. Army retired. I was Combat Command Commander of CCB 10th Armored Division in World War II. I'm Colonel Curtis L. Hankins. I was a battalion commander of the 61st Armored Infantry Battalion in the 10th Armored Division. My first encounter with enemy fire was during the defensive operation west of Metz. It was here that we learned to sense artillery fire, that is, determine the difference between outgoing, which was friendly fire, and incoming, which was German fire. If you could determine with some degree of accuracy where the enemy rounds were going to land, this would save a lot of wear and tear on your knees and elbows. You'd try to take cover every time the rounds would come over.
I am Colonel James O'Hara. I commanded the 54th Armored Infantry Battalion of the 10th Armored Division. I consider that this initial baptism of fire in a defensive position was very good for the battalion. It gave us time to gather our thoughts, practice some of the things we'd been learning in the States, get our communications working, having the reconnaissance platoon work with the Free French, practice patrolling, all these things that's so necessary for a battalion to do.
I remember my first day in combat. We felt very safe in a tank. But during this first day, after I seen the first tank hit by 88 and burned, we began to get scared. But even though we were awful scared, it didn't seem to be much of a handicap of doing our job, which was to destroy the enemy. And we did a fairly good job that first day. My name's John Winter. I was a tank platoon sergeant, 10th Armored Division during World War II.
After fighting for about 3 weeks around Metz, we moved north to the vicinity of the town of Thionville to participate in the Third Army offensive designed to capture Metz. The plan of 20th Corps, to which the 10th Armored was assigned, had two phases: to destroy the enemy in Metz and to catch him as he tried to pull out of Metz. The mission of the 10th was to make a deep penetration into the enemy's lines. Once it had crashed through the German defense, the left column, Combat Command B, was to advance east and seize a bridgehead over the Saar River near Mritzi. The right column, Combat Command A, was to take the division objective, including Husenville, which was the center of arterial highway and railroad traffic running northeast of Metz. The enemy blocked the way and fought savagely. But the Tigers clawed their way through the German defense.